Assalamu alaikum everyone, I'm Sana Zafar and you're watching Stars of NUST. We bring to you the success stories of our alumni who are creating new knowledge, who are breaking grounds all over the world. आज की स्टार ने हमें ज्वाइन किया है फ्रॉम सियाटल. हमारे साथ हैं अवाम की और ख़ास तौर पे MCS की अवाम की पुरजोर फरमाइश पे मुअज़्ज़मा ज़ाहिद. अस्सलाम वालेकुम मुअज़्ज़मा, थैंक यू फॉर जॉइनिंग अस.
Assalamu alaikum Sana, thank you for inviting me. Really excited about today.
Thank you. Muazma graduated from MCS back in 2006 when she completed her software engineering. Currently, she is Principal Engineering Manager at Microsoft. और इसके साथ साथ she is President Pakistani Women in Computing. और इसके अलावा भी और बहुत से exciting projects और initiatives का वो part हैं. हम उनके बारे में भी पूछेंगे. आइए मिलते हैं इनसे. Thank you so much, Muazma. Finally, हमने सितारों की गर्दिश पे काबू पा लिया and we have you here. So, very glad. Thank you for taking the time out.
Thank you so much. As I said, thank you for inviting me. I know that schedule or reschedule ki wajah se we had to change a few times, but I'm really excited to be here to talk about my journey, to know a little bit more about you also, and let's get started.
Sure, thank you. Please start कीजिएगा अपनी professional journey से. आपने NUST से graduate किया, उसके बाद क्या-क्या हुआ?
Yes, so I graduated, as you mentioned, in 2006. 2006 mein I graduated from NUST MCS Lal Kurti. That was the start of my kind of career. I started working at Terra Data Pakistan in the GCC office, unka global EMEA ka office hai. I started working there, and then as part of my graduation, I was actually awarded gold medals, not just one but two. So that was a great start of a career. But at the same time, it comes with the pressure that you have to live up to the expectations of everybody around you. So started my career in data and AI field, and I've been in the same field for over 14 years now. And I just realized that I've been working for so long. I took break, which I will talk in a second about it. But right after that, I think I was there for 3.5 years. Then I got married. I moved to the US back in 2010. It was right after the recession, so there was no company who was hiring, especially for visas. So I took a break of like 6 months or 8 months, and then I started looking for jobs. And honestly, there was no company jo ke visas de rahi ho. So it was a low point in my kind of career, and otherwise as well. Okay, I was fully kind of talented. I had all the skills, but there was nobody who was hiring. I was almost about to give up, but then somebody took a bet on me. So I actually got a contract to hire job at T-Mobile, which is a telecommunication company here in the US. That was very low in terms of pay. It was very kind of different than what I've done in the past. But I said, let's put our foot in the door. Let's put my foot in the door, right? So I started from there. And उसमें भी बहुत सारी interesting बातें हुई कि right when my contract was about to expire, there was a merger that was happening between T-Mobile and AT&T, and they actually let go of like 15,000 people. Wow. So one day I go to the work, and they are actually looking at the badges, and they're saying, yeah, if you can go inside, yeah, aap ghar chale ja. So those few moments, like, I think they were very interesting in my life. But luckily, I was the ones they said, "Kya aap andar chale ja." So, but it was interesting experience. Definitely interesting one. I was there for a while, 3.5, 4 years. Then I moved to a startup. So there's one thing you'll see in my whole kind of career, that I am always looking for new challenges. When everything becomes like easy, that's not enough for me. So I'm always looking for that uncomfortable learning that comes with it. So I actually moved to a startup where I was the chief data person. I came up with the entire data strategy for the company called Julep. I was there for a while. Then I went to another company, and then for last 3.5 years, almost 4 years, I've been at Microsoft as a principal engineering manager. I joined here as an engineer, and then moved into management role 1.5 years ago. So this is very, very high level summary. There's a lot that came and went in this kind of 14 years of my career, and I think I've learned a lot in those years. I have worked at small companies, mid-sized companies, large-scale companies, and of course work with so many different teams and different time zones. So that's kind of my career. Outside of my work, I truly believe in giving back and believe in that power of mentorship and power of helping others. So I joined this nonprofit called Pakistani Women in Computing about 3 years ago in their local Seattle chapter, which was one of the first chapters that was created by the co-founders. And then I became the president, and I've been the president for the last 2 years. Uska mission बहुत straightforward is to connect, learn, and grow together. And we are on a journey. And this is something I hope कि जब मैं graduate करी थी, I should have had people or mentors or people who look like me that I could access to or I could connect to and I could ask questions. But that wasn't there. So that is the organization I currently support. And I also kind of lead a lot of those similar efforts in a lot of places like Women Who Code Cloud, Anita Bjork, which is the largest women in tech community in the world. I lead their Seattle chapter, and a lot more like that. So you'll find me in those communities working, volunteering, and helping others as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. बहुत interesting journey है, बहुत मजे की journey है, और especially आपने एक step को जिस तरह से explain किया कि those exciting, nervous moments जब आपको बता रही हैं you can continue your job or not, or when you came to US and you didn't have a job for quite some time and then you started and you were willing to go down with job title or pay or anything because you wanted to be there. उसके बाद जब आपने startup join किया, इससे तो we can all learn a lot. I can totally see why so many people are your fan. और मैंने जब Facebook page अभी start किया था SaaS of NUST पे, so many people tagged you that Sana, if you are doing it, we want to see Muazma. And I think I already know why. प्लीज थोड़ा सा बताएं कि ये इतनी इंटरेस्टिंग जर्नी है आपकी, इसके साथ साथ यू हैव वेरी यंग किड्स माशाल्लाह. आई नो यू माशाल्लाह हैव ट्विन्स एज वेल. this is the main factor जिसकी वजह से कई दफा females have to stay back at home or can't continue their career, which is okay in a way, as in we respect everyone's choice, but it is a challenge. Not everybody can overcome that. उसके साथ साथ आप ये जॉब्स भी कर रही हैं और आप इतने ज्यादा इनिशिएटिव्स का पार्ट भी हैं. ये कैसे मैनेज होता है सब कुछ?
Yeah, I think thank you for that question. बहुत सारे लोग have asked me this question in the past. So I actually didn't think that I was really doing anything out of the ordinary. But when I look into like what I do, right, I think there are 2 or 3 kind of motivations that come behind it, right? So there's one that I want, that I've learned, I've worked really, really, really hard. I come from a middle class family, right? I did not have the money of like, let's say, going to the fancy schools or fancy, like I studied the whole NUST on scholarships, for example. So I am really proud of that. So there's that humble beginnings. I would say that's the most important thing. And I always remember that. That's very important to me. Family is, of course, the highest priority. So all of my decisions are actually like at the end of the day, at work also, we say there is no right or wrong decision in life, right? It is always about pros and cons. So you look at your options and you decide based on what will work and what will not work and what you can do to make it better, right? I know when I had twins, I really went through this kind of challenge, internal and external, from like everybody around me and all of that, that should I continue, should I not continue? So I would admit that I almost was about to give up, and I would say like, let's do one thing at a time, right? But then I said, let's try, let's see what happens. And I would admit that not all days are the same. There are days which are much harder than the other days. Like, you have kids as well. There are days when they're sick or somebody else and something else is happening, vice versa. The work takes over. So there's no real work-life balance. So if anybody is running after work-life balance, let me burst their bubble right now. There is no such thing. It's always an integration. It's always an integration between the 2 sides of you and actually many other sides of you that you balance. So your social life, your friends, your family, your work, everything else that matters to you. For me, there's another dimension, which is my passion to kind of work and do the volunteer and a lot of those things as well. So the one principle I have about all of this is when I'm taking something new, I always look at my plate. What can I give up? So that is one transaction I always make sure that I do when I pick up anything new. The other specific thing I would mention is like I'm highly organized. So some people would like laugh about it, but I'm really, really organized. So basically I have this I have my weekly to-dos, like these are my top 6 things I have to go and do this week. And I will make sure that I kind of hold myself accountable throughout the week कि I'm on target या नहीं. So, and that involves not just my work, everything. So it involves, like, for example, बच्चों के कोई lessons है, classes हैं, कुछ भी है. So they're all part of my, this one big kind of schedule that I make sure that I do that. So I'm really, really organized. I think I really look at like what I want to do in the next 3 weeks, what are my top priorities, and then work around it. And then the last thing is to let go, right? It's not about the things that you say yes to, it's about the things that you say no to. Can define you a lot more. There are so many opportunities and things that come my way, but I have to say, unfortunately, I cannot do that because of XYZ or because of those reasons that other priorities are higher importance to me. So I think those are the 3 things I would share. That's the only reason I do all this and stay sane as much as I can. But I would still say that there are so many days that's not the case. I have cried also. I have almost kind of gave up on a lot of those as well. But at any moment, I always look at like, what's my ecosystem? What's my support system around me? And that's really important as well. I also say this a lot to a lot of my mentees is that there is a support system you're born with, right? Your family, your siblings, your relatives, and then there's a support system you can build, which is the community, which is the tribe. For example, in Pakistani Women in Computing, we say we are a tribe of women who help support and uplift each other, right? So there are those things that really uplift me, and make sure that I stay on target for my goals and things that I want to do and the things that matter the most to me.
Thank you for sharing. What an inspiring answer. मैं आपसे पूछने वाली थी कि how do you stay sane with all of that, but you explained it already. It's definitely not easy, but wow. I mean, it's really exemplary because we do tend to give up very quickly. And I would say maybe females and especially moms, because priorities हर वक्त balance करना सब कुछ बहुत मुश्किल लग रहा होता है और at the end आपको यही लगता है कि, you know, maybe give up, maybe we can't do it. We have an example in front of us that you're not only doing your work and looking after your family, you're also part of all these initiatives and you're leading them. So that's a very inspiring thing right there, what you're doing. So more power to you, and I'm sure all of us can learn a lot from you. ये जो सब कुछ आपने बताया ये आपकी definitely personality का भी part है. आपने जैसे कहा आप come from humble background like all of us actually, and you think that, you know, having that in you, that you want to balance out, you know your priorities so well, you know how to stay organized and all that. Do you think you have learned it over time, or was it always there?
I think a lot of I've learned over time, right? Nobody is, and then I think the one thing I always look at is that constant learning, because the day you stop learning is when you think you know everything, right? So that to me is not right. If I meet somebody who tells me that I'm expert in XYZ, I start poking that person a lot of questions, right? I start asking those right questions to know. There's not enough minutes in our life to learn everything or to be an expert in anything, right? Learning is something that you can do throughout. So I think for me, as for example, if I look at my motherhood side, right? So there's always learning. And I think I wrote a blog about it, like the things I learned from my daughter, the things that she is unique about, or and of course with my twins and all of the others, like there's so much to learn from the people around you. In terms of organization, I think I was pretty organized, but I actually learned way more organization from my husband. He's way more organized than me. So there's like a lot that I've learned over the years, in terms of what works, what doesn't work. And then, as I said, like as you realize over the path, there's no right and wrong path, right? There is no, like, if somebody wants to give up, like that is your choice. If it is your choice, go for it, right? I always say that to a lot of moms. This is what, if you want to do this, is just do it, because that's the right choice for you. There's no comparison of you versus somebody else. This is something you have to decide for yourself and be at peace with that, right? That's the most important thing. If you have, if you think that there are other options, and go explore them and try it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, go with the option that you feel the most comfortable with. So ये हमारी society का और जो हमारे जो socio-economic pressures हैं उसकी वजह से we have this definition of what's right versus wrong. And I don't believe in those. I truly believe in what works for you. Where are you the most happy person? When you go to bed, what are the things that worry you, right? And when you think about that, you know where you are and what you want to do, and you know the right versus wrong for yourself. That's the most important thing to me.
True. बहुत अच्छा आंसर है आपका. I think I believe in that as well. Not that I'm as successful as you are, but generally saying, I totally believe in that. The day you start believing that you know everything in any role, be as a spouse, as a daughter, as a sibling, to your in-laws, as a mother, as a professional, is the day you stop growing. You have to learn, and you have to learn new things every single day. And I'm actually thinking a lot about philosophy here, but let's not go there. But yeah, that's true. We do exist in a very constrained circle of our potential beings. And the day we stop exploring the potential further is where you stop. And I think what you said about making the choices and then owning up to them, that's so important. For females, हम इसी क्वेश्चन की तरफ मैं आ रही थी कि स्पेशली फॉर फीमेल्स हमारी एनवायरनमेंट, इट्स नॉट जस्ट प्रोफेशनल एनवायरनमेंट, घरों पे भी इतने ज्यादा प्रेशर्स हैं, इतने ज्यादा इनविजिबल प्रेशर्स हैं, और इतनी ग्लास सीलिंग्स हैं इन द प्रोफेशनल लाइफ एज वेल. उन सब के लिए आई हैव हर्ड यू टॉक अबाउट इक्विटी एंड इक्वालिटी एंड एवरीथिंग. प्लीज उसका भी थोड़ा सा शेयर कीजिएगा, बिकॉज दैट टॉपिक इज सो क्लोज टू माई हार्ट एज वेल. सो आई वांट योर इनपुट ऑन दैट.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of people, I think, talk about equality as you're mentioning, right? I actually go beyond that. I think it's very common in US, for example, the word equity, which is more important than equality. So if you have, let's say, if I could show a picture here, it would be much easier. But basically, if you have two people, let's say one of them is an adult, another one is a child, and they both want to see a match or see a ground where there is a match going on, cricket match or koi bhi match aap le le. So now if you give them same stools, they will go higher, but the one who is the younger one would still not be able to see the match because of his or her height, right? Yeah. The other one would be. So that is equality. That to me is equality, because you gave them equal stuff, and with the result of that is they're good, but one of them is still behind the other one, right? To me, the equity piece, and that's the famous picture I'm kind of depicting here in words, is where you actually help the one who is shorter in height or who is a young person to give a little bit more boost to be at the same level as the other. And in some cases maybe higher, because they might not have the same potential, they might not have the same resources to go and actually see what they want to see or what they want to be. So that to me is equity, and that is very, very, very important. And I think we get stuck in this whole cycle of ke ye equal hai, just not gender. I'm not like saying about man versus woman and things like that. It's way more than that. We are very more complex human beings than that, right? We all are very unique in many ways. So for example, in US, it's not about just the gender. It's about your religion, your ethnic background, the color of your skin, how you look, how you talk, your accent, your upbringing. There's a lot more that you bring to the table. And that is what is the intersectionality of all of those circles. If you draw those on a whiteboard, that's what makes you unique, right? So every one of us is different in that way. So that's the most important thing for me. And I think when I work in these organizations, I currently lead, let's say, Women in Azure at Microsoft, which is one of the kind of the ERGs, employee resource groups in Microsoft. So we kind of lead the programs of how do we set up these people, not just women, but minority genders and a lot of other places, a lot of other things, how they can be set up for success, how they can have the right access to the sponsors, allies, mentors, all of that. And then what is the right programming in terms of like workshops, technical workshops, other things that they can do. So that to me is really, really, I would say, important for us to switch that from equality to equity and start thinking about people who don't have the resources. For a long period in my life, before I joined any official organization, I was mentoring people in a lot of remote areas. For example, I was mentoring four girls, one in Quetta, actually in Balochistan, not in the main city, but actually in the in a remote region in Balochistan. I was also doing that with somebody in Sawat for a long time, and those are the women who have the grit, who have the power, but they don't have the same resources, they don't have the same universities, they don't have the same access the way we had, for example. So you need that kind of ecosystem to help you in some situations, and you need the people to give you and guide you. And the kind of questions they used to ask me, that is a learning for me, because I never went to their situations, I've never been to their shoes. So when they ask me, oh, I have to take this course, I have to go to this place, and I have to ask for this permission or this thing, what should I do? So I had to really think about the right situations, and sometimes I don't have the answers. So I would connect them with somebody who might have the answers. So there's a lot for my own learning in all of this as well. So that's the most other thing that I look forward to when I talk to these people. That gives me energy. So there's a lot. I think I can keep talking about this. This is a topic I'm also very passionate about. There's a lot I can talk about in this area. I think if you look in the world right now, there's all sorts of issues, right? So pick up the things that matter the most to you. I would say if you are passionate about something, there's no stopping you to go after this. And if you're waiting for perfection, that will never happen. So that's the other thing I would say. Go for I would say the progress, not perfection. That is one of the quote that is actually on my desk. So I always make sure that I look at it. Consistency is the key. Keep that hard work going. That is something my father taught me, and I think that's something I live by every single day. And go for it.
Wow. I'm really impressed. Seriously. I mean, everything that you talked about here, how you explained equity and equality, that is so, so true. I used to say as well, like when I taught back at NUST, and Pakistan में थोड़े से लोग ज़्यादा impress हो जाते हैं कि वो आप NUST में पढ़ा रही हैं, so big deal. So I would always tell them that, it's just that the circumstances that made it possible. It could be very much any other girl given the same circumstances. So anything like that, like you said, kuch resources mein, kuch cheezon mein, kuch log lack kar rahe hain, and it's important to bring them forward. And what you mentioned about helping a girl in Balochistan and other girls in the remote areas, that is so important. I mean, if somebody like you sitting in Microsoft, sitting in Seattle, can actually think about those girls, and that too with empathy, because it gets very difficult to be consumed by the things you are offered. And even जब मैं gender equality की भी बात करती हूँ, तो it's very easy for me to say that it's not my job, or husband can take care of that, because I'm given to those circumstances. But empathy, to actually understand, like you mentioned, कि उनके लिए ये कि वो किससे permission लेनी है, how to go about it, that's a whole different thing that you probably cannot relate, but you're still there making a difference, helping people. That is just so amazing. Hands down, that is so impressive, mashallah, mashallah. And we are so proud to have such a star, and wish you all the best and success, inshallah, because you are our hope, seriously, for so many girls out there, for so many people, for the next generation. And we really need people like you. So thank you for doing whatever you're doing, mashallah.
No, thank you. And I think I would just add one thing. It's the circumstances, but it's a lot of hard work, right? So you were there with the hard work. So definitely give yourself pat at the back. That's something I say a lot. That's another thing that we are not good at, especially as women, or as other, like we grew up to be those people who always say yes, to be the most humble one in the room. And that's our culture, and I'm proud of that. But that is something that the first thing is, like we always negate ourselves, the work that we put in. So please give yourself a pat at the back for all the hard work that you put in, for the things that you achieved, and for the things that you're doing now as well, for this show and other things as well. So really, thanks for that.
Thank you very much for saying that. And yes, that's an ongoing debate with a lot of people. They tell me you are just putting yourself down and why you're not taking the credit. But yes, I hear you, whatever you just said. I hear you. That happens to a lot of females probably, and especially moms, again, because you have not been out there in offices and doing the work that you actually planned, or you look at others doing, तो आप automatically थोड़ा सा आपको लगता है कि आप जा रहे हैं. आपने बताया अपनी जर्नी में, जैसे आपने बात की थी कि you have to take risks. You were really a risk taker कि आप you didn't stick to it कि यही जॉब होगी या यही जॉब टाइटल होगा और इतनी ही पे होगी तभी मैं स्टार्ट करूंगी. इसी तरह आपने स्टार्टअप को भी ज्वाइन किया. ये रिस्क टेकिंग का जो फैक्टर है, does that convert into key success factor as well or defining moment in your journey, at least, if we cannot generalize it?
Yeah, I think the risk and reward is something everybody has to look at. Like, no matter what decisions you take, be it your job, be it investing, be it anything, right? So risk reward का एक default है जो you don't know what you're gonna get into, right? So as I said, like I always look at those options, and then there's no right and wrong option for me. There's always pros and cons. So you look at like, this is what I think it would be. This is what I will learn from it. This is what I'm gonna grow into this role, and these are the things might not work out, right? So एक और चीज I do for myself, and this is advice that I give to a lot of people early career, mid career, other places, is जब हम products के लिए करते हैं एक SWOT analysis, so वो होता है strength, weaknesses, opportunities or threats. So it's like a quadrant that you draw on a paper. You can draw it on your laptop as well, where you write down what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are the opportunities, and what are the threats. And then when you actually put the pen to it, right, like when you write it down, you realize if you do it for a job, you do it for a product, you do it for anything that you're working in, you will get a much more perspective on what you're doing. So life ke upar bhi wo SWOT analysis, I think it's important to do it from time to time. For your decision, especially, what is the effect of those? What are the threats in those when you do that? For example, when I took the startup opportunity, I was actually moving away. I was taking a commute of an hour and a half into downtown Seattle from where I was living, which meant that I would be that far away from my kids if something happens. So I have to come that. So I had to do that kind of analysis to make sure. I'm a data person, so you'll see that I look into numbers and figures and like do that analysis. So definitely I had to do that, and I had to realize if something like that happens, what is the worst case scenario? What is that I'm going to do in that situation? What is somebody I could call in those situations? What is the help I have at home and all of that, right? So I think it's important for everything you do. You should look at the risks. You should look at the opportunities. You should look at the threat, and make the decision based on that. And that decides which way to go. And as I said in the previous question, like it's the things that you say no to also is important, not always the yeses. So people look at the success in terms of like it's a ladder. It's not a ladder. It's like it's a spaghetti. So you actually go back and forth, up and down many times in your life for so many things, and you learn from that.
That makes so much sense. Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. जल्दी से आएंगे आपके हम थोड़े से नॉन सीरियस क्वेश्चंस पे. MCS टाइम की कोई फन मेमोरीज हैं? आपके बड़े फैंस हैं MCS में, so I want to know more about it.
So MCS में I think the most fun memory was I come from a civilian background. So I had nobody in my family, like immediate family, was in army or anything. So the first day I reached there, so they said that there's a thing called ragging. So I was like, okay, what is that? And then you had to stand in line and go. Like, the first of all, that was to me a completely new concept. Like literally the concept was new. So I was like, what's happening? It was not a good experience for me. It was super fun. The second most, I think, fun memory is the bus ride. So I used to take bus, जब हमारी bus होती थी back to Islam. I used to live in Islamabad, and my stop was literally the last stop of the whole bus ride. My best friend, she was in there, and I think she made the journey worthwhile. So we used to talk about like everything. I think all of our aspirations, everything, starting from our like NUST itself to everything else you can imagine. So that used to be super fun. I really, really remember those times as the most fond times in terms of my fond memories of MCS, especially with my friend. And last one was, so I became the first kind of chief prefect, which is a new concept. So they made me kind of in charge of discipline and bunch of things. So that was a role that was created. I was the first chief prefect of MCS. I think my name is still on one of the corridors over there. And interesting part of that was like every few weeks I would come up with a new idea and end up in the brigade, in like the dean's office, like Brigadier Akbar and a few other people over there back then. with like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And they were not so keen about those, right? So I was always that change maker. So I remember I did the first Meena Bazaar, which we called, I forgot the name of it, which was not a concept in NUST. So we was like, we want to do that. And I had the whole kind of students behind me and backing that up. So that was a fun experience. There's a lot of memories like that. I think we did a lot. We came up with a new kind of council. We started newsletters. And a lot of things changed after that. I think the standard NUST or MCS, how we knew it, changed after some of the things that I kind of initiated or tried. Some for the good, some maybe not so good, but they were fun. And
I think
really
mostly
loved
for
it.
the good. And that's the reason that, especially your juniors who are in my parallel batch or something, they always remember you in such good words. Definitely, you did mostly for the good. किसी को मेंशन करना चाहेंगे फ्रेंड्स में से टीचर्स में से
Yeah, I think friends definitely. Rabia, she's been an instructor there. She's my best friend, Rabia Khan. In terms of instructors, Dr. Said Murtaza, I know a lot of people don't like. He is a very strict. I think he's still teaching. I'm not sure. So he was very strict. But I think my maths. My father is a mathematician as well, so my maths concept, the way he taught it, are still with me. I think they're really useful in my job as well. Still. So he was there. Brigadier Muhammad Akbar, he was my advisor on my project. So I'm really like thankful for all his advice, all of his connections, help that we could get at that point from AFIC, which was a medical institute that the project I did with. So yeah, all of them. I think there are way more. There's a long list, but definitely these three people I would like to mention.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. That's a very, very inspiring story there. And I hope you keep on doing whatever you're doing. And we get to see and get to hear all of that even more in future, inshallah. All the best with your kids. You're managing all of that with twins, mashallah. That's an inspiration right there for all of us. So thank you so much for doing everything you're doing. And thank you for taking the time out today for us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and inshallah we'll stay in touch, and looking forward to what you do in the future as well, Sana. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. Allah Hafiz.